Okay, there's something suspect going on with the Bundesliga.
It's not easy to arrive in a team and perform straight away. We can see obviously Florian Wirtz at Liverpool, but I always have a question mark on people that perform in Germany. That's only me. I'm not saying that they won't perform in another league. I'm just saying because of the way the league is, they're really stretched. So if you can run well, you're gonna have a lot of opportunity, goals, assists. People can run with you in this league.
As controversial as this might sound, maybe there's some degree of truth in it. Is the Bundesliga really a scam league? Does German football scam the Premier League? Or is this all a big misconception with certain players and teams that make the situation look bad? To be fair, especially with this season, there have been a lot of questions regarding some of the best talents the Bundesliga used to have. Florian Wirtz, Xavi Simons, even Jeremie Frimpong too. Run it back to previous players like Jadon Sancho, a star at Borussia Dortmund who struggled largely for Man United and can't even make the team at Aston Villa. Or played like Christopher Nkunku, or an OG a couple of years back, Timo Werner. Add all these names to the list and there seems to be a problem. So getting straight into it then, is there an issue with players that have moved from the Bundesliga to the Premier League in recent years? To answer this, we're going to pick out a couple of names from both sides of the scale to even things up. You've got to start with Florian Wirtz. Given how good it used to be for Bayer Leverkusen in the Bundesliga, it's almost shocking to see how he's performing for Liverpool now. We're talking about the guy who used to run the show, Xabi Alonso's whiz kid. Wirtz could do everything. Score, assist, skills, dribbles, heck, even press. He was the complete model of a young attacking player, the centerpiece of Leverkusen, ending Bayern's 11-year streak to win the league in the 2023-24 campaign. And so, when this summer it became clear that Wirtz wasn't going to continue at Leverkusen, and the club eventually accepted a £116 million bid for him, even though it was a hefty fee, you just felt like Liverpool were paying ahead. It just felt like the club were paying for what Wirtz could potentially become, an even scarier and better version of how good he was at the time. It hasn't worked out like that. So what exactly is the issue then? Well, it's a lot of things. For one, Liverpool looks really bad right now. As of recording this, they've won just 3 of their last 11 games and lost the remaining 8. They're struggling to play as a team, letting so many cheap goals in. Now to pin all of this and say Wirtz is the problem would seem really unfair. But then again, Arne Slot has tried to play him in multiple positions. He's played in the number 10 role just behind the striker, played him in a deeper midfield role, played him as an 8, even played him out wide. It's not to say Wirtz has been bad, but the good performances, like the way he played against Real Madrid, have been few and far between. And even with that, you could again argue that the game against Real Madrid was a European one. When it's come down to actual Premier League opposition, Wirtz has 0 goals and assists in 11 Premier League games. His only goal contributions so far have come in the Champions League against Frankfurt, 2 assists on his return to Germany. It's the same with Jeremie Frimpong as well. Just like Wirtz, he too was an important part of the Leverkusen team that ended Bayern's dominance in the Bundesliga.
He has a goal! That is how to finish it!
Liverpool signed him to add depth to a position they'd lost Trent Alexander-Arnold in. Different play styles, but with his speed and ability to get involved with goals from an attacking sense, it again looked like Frimpong would be an ideal fit for the Premier League. Same thing though, it hasn't worked out. When he hasn't been out injured, honestly, Frimpong has either looked lost or out of position. But it's not just all Liverpool. Switch the focus to Spurs and Thomas Frank is dealing with the same problem too. Xavi Simons looked like the ideal solution for Spurs. After James Maddison's ACL injury and missing out on Eberechi Eze to Arsenal, Spurs splashed the cash and signed Xavi Simons for £51.8 million. It made sense. He was the creative diamond at Leipzig. A number 10 who could play out wide, operate deeper, or even as a false 9 if he had to. He combined trickery and skills with goals and assists for Leipzig. At just 22, the future's definitely ahead of him. Since recording an assist in his debut game against West Ham in the league, Xavi Simons has produced just 1 goal contribution in 14 games. For a guy who is supposed to be the creative spark in the team, that's worrying. It's also continued the trend. Even before Xavi Simons left Leipzig to join Spurs, another big money transfer from the same club had made the headlines. Benjamin Šeško. 2 goals in 11 Premier League games for Manchester United.
Finds himself on the end of it!
In his case, maybe you could excuse that he's been eased into the team. 3 goal contributions in total. But there's something a bit off about Benjamin Šeško. I wouldn't exactly call him a baby giraffe at 6'5". He isn't exactly the dominating presence in attack that most fans would have thought he'd be. Right, 4 new signings from 2 clubs straight from the Bundesliga to the Premier League. 4 new signings who've yet to really hit the mark in the league. So based on this, and the other examples we mentioned earlier then, is it enough to say the Bundesliga is a sham league and scams the Premier League? Well, before we attempt to answer it, be sure to smash that subscribe button to Football Historia down below if you haven't already yet, so you can keep getting more quality videos like this. Well, the plain answer would be no, for several reasons too. Let's think of the problem as being two-faced. On the part of the Premier League, it's a known problem. English football has a spending addiction.
In the 4 years we've been talking about a better deal from the Premier League clubs have chosen to increase their wages by 850 million.
This one stems from the league itself. We'll get to how the Premier League plays its part in affecting these players, but the point here is that the spending in the Premier League goes a long way in affecting how we see these guys. Think of it like this. If Liverpool were to pay half of what they paid for Wirtz, it's not to say he won't get called out for his lack of goal contributions, but it wouldn't be as bad. The price of the player ultimately determines just how much scrutiny he comes under. United bought Benjamin Šeško for £73.7 million. In today's market, that is still a huge sum. There's a point with all of this. Because of the nature of the game, when you think of players that cost above the £50–60 million mark, you immediately assume these are either proven superstars or generational talents who wouldn't waste any time settling in no matter the league. That's the problem with English football. The fact that clubs know they can force English teams to pay almost 2 to 3 times the actual value of a player because the money is available immediately changes how we see them. Expensive signings who must deliver now. Then there's the other problem, the one that, to be fair, a lot of people tend to ignore. The 4 players we used as examples joined clubs that were either transitioning or struggling to find new identities. We've already talked about the problems surrounding Liverpool and what players like Wirtz and Jeremie Frimpong walked into. It's the same with Spurs and Xavi Simons. This Spurs team is still new. Just like Xavi Simons, head coach Thomas Frank just arrived this summer. The team is still rebuilding, it's still a process. The same with Manchester United and Benjamin Šeško too. Ruben Amorim has constantly mentioned how this United team under him is still learning, not where they want to be yet. Even the players from previous years. Jadon Sancho arrived at a Man United team that had just signed Cristiano Ronaldo and taken on a different identity than the one they had in the previous season. Or Christopher Nkunku. He was part of a massive Chelsea overhaul that saw over £1 billion spent on new player acquisitions. So the point with all of this is, it's kind of unrealistic to be expecting magic from players who, just like either their coaches or the rest of the team, are still figuring stuff out. Let's throw it back again. There's something about what Thierry Henry said that stands out.
You're gonna have a lot of opportunity, goals, assists. People can run with you in this league. So it's very difficult. And if we go back to what you were saying, Jeremy, and what you asked Kelly before, is the fact that creating.
Now, honestly, this statement swings 2 ways. Truth is, anyone who watches the Bundesliga knows the league isn't exactly stereotyped the way Henry termed it. There's a different mix of systems in the league. However, you cannot deny that Bundesliga football isn't negative. It's a plus. It's the reason why we see so many goals almost every match day, and that's because to a large extent, most teams in the league play different mixes of attacking football. But again, there's a point we're trying to bring out from all of this. Ultimately, the leagues these players are coming from will affect how they play. And so it brings up a really important question. Just how different is the Premier League from the Bundesliga? The most obvious one is the quality. There's a reason the Premier League is, financially speaking, the best in the world. And that's because, really, the difference between the 20 teams in the league isn't as big as in other leagues. Let's not confuse this. The point here is that the Premier League is competitive, very competitive.
And I think the first 32 games have shown us how difficult it is, not only for us, but for every team. I repeat, every team in the Premier League to win a game of football. So the competition has never been as strong as it is this season.
Almost any team can beat any team in the league, and there's more too.
But West Ham are in this crazy position, and it's the benefits of the Premier League, but some would say it's the downfall of the Premier League. The fact that the West Hams of this world and the Evertons of this world, even though they've been in relegation battles, they don't have to sell their best players anymore.
It's the fact that the lesser clubs in the Premier League don't exactly have to sell their best players to compete. You look at almost every team in the Premier League from top to bottom, and there are at least 2 or 3 players in each team you can admit could be playing for much better clubs. But there's no pressure from these lesser clubs to sell because they've got enough to sustain wages. That's the first major difference between the Premier League and the Bundesliga. Because of the spending power, it strengthens English football and almost weakens German football. Unfortunately, there's a notion with German football that, in the end, is kind of true. Bayern Munich, unfortunately, has this superpower that makes almost every other club in the league act as a feeder club for them. The best players in German football almost always have 2 eventualities. Either they play for Bayern or they get a move abroad. It almost even happened with Wirtz. Bayern pulled out of the deal and Liverpool paid more to sign him. Going back to the Bundesliga, this system ultimately weakens the league. In the case of English football, where you can point out 2 to 3 players who should be playing for bigger clubs, you can't exactly say the same for the Bundesliga. The purchasing power difference between both leagues, even when compared with leagues around the world, again, just the Premier League on another level. Then there's the actual playing style in the league. We already talked about how attack-minded most teams in the Bundesliga are. It just adds up for a very interesting back-and-forth game. This in turn does mean that at times games in the league can be stretched, whereas in the Premier League, it's almost a bit boring now with teams taking cautious approaches and trying more to win games than secure results, whereas in the Bundesliga, it's about the football, the goals, not necessarily the scoreline, but the goals. The most recent match day serves as an example. Out of 9 games played on match day 11, 5 games ended in scorelines with at least 3 or more goals. Borussia Dortmund and Stuttgart played out a 3-3 draw. Leverkusen beat Wolfsburg away from home 3-1. Borussia Mönchengladbach beat Heidenheim 3-0. Eintracht Frankfurt beat FC Köln 4-3 away from home in a thriller. And in the pick of the bunch, Bayern Munich came from 2 goals down to beat SC Freiburg 6-2. As a neutral, this is loads of entertainment. But the crazy part is, this is actually just a regular match day in Germany. And in the grand context of the difference between the leagues, it's more fun, more entertaining. And maybe that's why we see some of these players struggle in the Premier League. The Premier League isn't as open as a German top flight is. In English football, it's physical. Teams run more, sprint more, are more fit to handle extreme conditions and demanding matches. And with all of this, they've still got players who are technically gifted as well. But with all that's been said so far, we're missing one key part, a piece that could very well settle this entire conversation: the players. We've talked about systems, the cultures and differences between both leagues, forms of the club they've joined, but we haven't talked about the players themselves, and this is very important. The same way we've singled out players who've come to the Premier League from the Bundesliga and failed to perform is the same way we can also draft up a list of players who have made the move from Germany down to the Premier League and hit it off from the start. Players like Kevin De Bruyne, a hit at Werder Bremen and Wolfsburg, before becoming King Kevin at Manchester City. Or to more recent examples, Manchester City's goal machine, Erling Haaland, was also firing in the goals for Borussia Dortmund before making the move to City. Dominik Szoboszlai joined Liverpool from RB Leipzig and has been by far the club's best performer in a torrid season so far. We could even come down to the more recent transfer window, the same one where we mentioned Wirtz, Frimpong, Xavi Simons and Šeško. In the same way, Liverpool also made another Bundesliga signing at Anfield. This time, they spent £69 million on former Eintracht Frankfurt striker Hugo Ekitike. And of all the signings so far this season, it's Ekitike that has hit the ground running. He's scored in every competition he's played in for Liverpool this season. Another Bundesliga striker has also hit the ground running at a Premier League club, Nick Woltemade. Just like Ekitike, Woltemade has scored in every competition he's played in for Newcastle this season. He too has come to the league and has almost been an instant fit for Newcastle. This then tilts the narrative and brings us closer to the truth. Ultimately, while the success or failure of a player will be influenced by many things, such as the league, the conditions at the club, and the system or tactics, It, in the end, comes down to the players. How well they can adapt. Players like Ekitike and Woltemade are proof that the same way people talk about the Bundesliga tax of big money signings is the same way other names have come to the league and wasted no time settling down. With this in mind, it helps us answer the question from the very beginning. Does the Bundesliga scam the Premier League? The honest answer is no. If anything, the Premier League scams itself. I mean, if you're approaching a club when they know fully well that you've got the resources to pay more for a player than the actual value, more often than not, they'll try to push to get as much out of the deal as they can. True, the Bundesliga isn't as competitive in terms of the financial appeal and the difference between the teams as the Premier League, but there's a reason you see teams not just from the Premier League now, but from across Europe coming to Germany to scout for talent. Especially the Premier League. The figures may have been influenced by Liverpool's raid on Bundesliga talent this summer, but still, Premier League clubs in the previous summer window almost spent more alone on Bundesliga players, €666 million, than the Spanish La Liga did on entire league signings, €684 million. This data is wild. What it simply means is that the Bundesliga is still an attractive hub to find some of the best talents in the world. It all comes down to how well clubs can negotiate deals and get players who fit their systems in the long run. It's that simple. It's also in the same way we've seen players switch from the Premier League to the Bundesliga and thrive. Harry Kane and Luis Diaz at Bayern Munich are prime examples now. Jadon Sancho returned to Dortmund for just 6 months in 2024 and looked like the player United paid over £80 million for in 2021. There really is no bad system or a bad league. It's just down to how well players adapt. As crazy as the Bundesliga is though, it doesn't really come close to what peak Serie A football used to be. Chaos! From a title race that went all the way to the final day, to the subplots behind teams sharing stadiums and tossing both players and managers around. Click the next video to find out why Serie A is the wildest league in Europe.